Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of ChampsTalk TV. We're here with the main event of Glory 88, James McSweeney, one half, the legend himself. James, when I was researching your background, you fought everywhere. I mean, how many countries have you lived in and fought in? I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, but
to be honest, I don't. I've lived in England, Holland, America, Australia, Thailand. I've lived in those 5 countries for a longer period of time. And then, fight-wise, I couldn't tell you. You'd name the country, I'd probably tell you if I thought that'd be easier.
Oh gosh. Australia was one of the ones I was going to ask you about, but you've already mentioned that.
6 times.
6 times, wow. Where was it, bare knuckle? Was that in the States?
I had one, actually 2 in America, and thank you. And I had 1 in Cuba.
Wow. Okay, so you really did get around. And so when I was like just reading up about yourself, you left England quite early, I believe, like when you were 18, or if that's.
Yeah, I mean, I left England when I was a bit younger than that. I went to Thailand for a little bit and trained, and then when I came back, I actually went to Holland when I was like 19. Okay. And I was living I was training in Holland from Monday to Friday, and I'd come home on weekends. I had a security company, so I'd work like Friday, Saturday night, and then go back Sunday. It was a 30-minute flight from Stansted Airport to Schiphol. So I'd jump on the plane, get to Schiphol, get situated, and back in the gym Monday morning.
Oh, wow, okay. And where, if you don't mind asking, where are you from in the UK? In London, or?
I'm just out. My family are from a small town called Sippenham, which is like it's just outside Slough, which is an absolute shithole. It's like 30 minutes outside of London. So it's this little town down southwest of London. When I moved out of my parents' house, I lived on my own. I lived in central London, and I lived all over London at different times.
Okay. And so you got into security first, and then how did you get introduced to like martial arts formally? How was that process?
I started kickboxing when I was 5.
Wow.
And then I did Muay Thai when I was like 7. And then it just went on from there. I did some judo. Judo really at the time didn't really take for me. I started off striking, right? So that was much more egotistical. So I was much more in love with striking than I was just throwing people around. So that was always that. But then I had my first fight when I was like 12. Wow. And then, it was love at first fight, if you like. It just, I never looked back after that. It just started to go. And then I was playing soccer. I was into all sports. And then it started to get serious for me around 16, 17.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm from London myself, but I don't know if many people, like, I guess people would talk about Muay Thai, and boxing has always been quite big in England, but kickboxing not so much, or I didn't hear about it myself too much, you know?
Well, back then it was like very local organization shows, right? There was like, you could fight for like a Southeast title, you could fight for the Northern area title, Western area title, then it was like the British title, then there was British European, and then there was European, and then there was world titles. But yet again, there was no real like sanctioning bodies back then, right? You're talking about mid-90s, late 90s, 96, 97, 98 onwards. There was no real sanctioning bodies. There was the WKO, whichever kind of WKN, World Kickboxing Network. But yeah, it still wasn't like, there was no real big governing bodies back then. There was no television. You fought in a local little leisure center if you were lucky. And if you made it into the local newspaper, you was a superstar.
Wow.
There was no internet back then. There was no social media. There was nothing.
And who kind of like did you look up to around those times, or who was around you that you kind of thought, I want to fight like this person?
Well, there was a good friend of mine, Chris Ballard. We became friends. He was already a kickboxing British champion, European champion. And back then you wore like the foot protectors, you wore the shin guards. There was no clinching. There was just like, it was just kickboxing above the waist. And then it went to kickboxing with low kicks. That kind of transition happened in the late 90s, 97, 98, 99. And Chris was, he was a stud, super, super aggressive guy. But he was my best friend. and we started training together. We lived together. We worked together. I had a security company. We did security together, and he was my main person that took me under his wing the longest.
I think I saw the Glory clip. If you're talking about the same, I think you were talking about Chris in one of those clips, right? And you mentioned how much of an impact he'd had on your life. So,
yeah, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be a kickboxer or a fighter, to be honest.
Wow, I still am struggling to wrap my head around how a 12-year-old is, just going straight into the quick kickboxing world like that. But that's so cool to hear. And also, I know that you've got the mixed martial arts background, so it's also cool to. I mean, I'm guessing at some point you did transition and you're doing more of the grappling and the wrestling and the BJJ. But in your heart, have you always been a striker, even within MMA, or did you adapt?
It started off that way, to be honest, and I was kind of like this, like egotistical. I used to watch the MMA, right? I fought on a couple of shows where they had kickboxing first and then MMA later, and I was like this idiot guy that had this like, oh, look at these guys hugging, like, whoa, what a lot of shit, the wrestling on the floor, like this very simplistic stupidity of uneducation of the sport. And that was in like the middle 90s, 96, 97. And yeah, of course, later, 2006, 2007, I had an MMA fight, my first MMA fight. And I fought a good wrestler. I had no groundwork. I'd never even trained groundwork. I never even trained wrestling. And I think we got into a bit of a fight. I fought for cage rage. And then I flipped him over, got on top, and I just literally just ground and pounded him out from what I knew from street fighting, to be honest. It was like I knew nothing. And I still never gave the sport the respect it deserved. But, I just, I'm a fighter, right? I could do anything. You have this mentality, right? This stupidity. And then I fought a good wrestler from like London Shoot Fighters. He just took me straight down like I was a 2-year-old, put me on my back and beat the shit out of me. So I was like, wow, what just happened? This has never happened in my entire life. Not in the street, not on the door, not in a kickboxing fight. Like the guy just took me off my feet like I was like standing on banana skins and just got on top and absolutely just beat the shit out of me. And I was like, okay, well, now I better start learning this stuff. So I really kind of like started to pay interest, and I started learning some jiu-jitsu, started learning some wrestling. Then I got the opportunity to go to America and train at Greg Jackson's, did that. And then I got my Ultimate Fighter opportunity. And then I still had been training groundwork for probably like a month or two. And I was in the Ultimate Fighter. No groundwork.
Ultimate Fighter, it's really cool to see. I saw a clip yesterday, and I can't claim to have been watching Tough at the time, but I recapped some. I'm 31, so yeah. My friend was watching it at the time, and the first time, exactly like you mentioned, he showed me a fight of like Junior Dos Santos and Kane, and there was blood everywhere, and I was like, oh, forget this. And then I saw a clip of Alistair training, and then that really interested me. And it was around the time when Chael was talking a lot of trash to Anderson Silva, and then I thought, okay, this sport is kind of cool. But speaking of the Ultimate Fighter and the clip that I saw yesterday, you have a mean standing guillotine, if you know what I'm talking about, with the prank. Yeah, what happened with that?
Well, without going too deep, there was a guy in the house that everyone had a distaste for. We found out some information inside the house about this guy. We was all speaking the first day or two, and everyone's, kind of telling their little stories. And he said something that kind of pissed everybody off. No one had a good taste for him after he said this one thing. And it put a big target on his back. And he was just, to be honest, you're in a house, right? There's like 16 of us, 16 heavyweights, all trying to get into the UFC. None of us really knowing what the fuck we're doing. We're all trying to find our way in the sport. And we're all young, full of ego and what so forth. And this kid was like, listen, he was a fighter, right? He was like 10-1 or something in the pro rankings. He wasn't like an idiot. But if you know what I mean, he was an idiot. In his mind, he wasn't where we was. And he just kept talking out of turn, kept saying stupid things. And I don't know what happened. One time I just walked past the door and he was in there and he was acting a fool. So I just I pulled the drawer over the door so he couldn't get out. And he was going mad and kicking the door and shouting, whoever did that, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, whatever. When I get out of here. So we were just laughing, right? I didn't think he was going to do anything. So I closed the door and I opened it. And when he come flying at me. So I know if I punch him, that I'm gonna get kicked off the show, right? So I think I kicked him in the balls and got him in the guillotine, and then told him that if you don't quiet down, I'm gonna put you to sleep. So that was the end of that.
Deep. It looked really deep.
Oh, it was it was deep. He would have gone to sleep if I didn't let go.
So was this around the time that you were still training in Amsterdam, or had you now gone to Greg's?
No, I was training at Lucian Carbini's gym at the time, and then I transitioned to America. I helped Rashad Evans get ready for his fight against Forrest Griffin for the light heavyweight title. I was brought in as like a sparring partner. And then after like a week or two, I kind of transitioned to help him for the fight. We grew a friendship, and I cornered him for the fight. He won the belt. I was meant to be going back to America, and I got a phone call from Joe Silva, who was the matchmaker of the UFC, and said, "Hey, James, how you doing? I've got an opportunity for you if you want to take it. I've heard a lot of good things about you. You don't have to try out, but we have this show, The Ultimate Fighter. It's a reality show. Just show up, pass the medicals, and you're in." And I was like, I almost took offense to it. I was like, I'm not a reality guy. I think you got me. I'm a fighter. Like, you got me mixed up with somebody else. And he's like, no, you don't understand. You're getting me wrong. It's not like that. It's a fight show. Rashad's on it. Rampage is going to be on it. Give Rashad a call and find out. And I was like, call me back. So I was like, okay, called Rashad. He's like, no, he explained to me what the show was. I'd never seen it. So he's like, okay, let's do it. But listen, I don't know anything about MMA. I've been training groundwork with you for like a couple of weeks. I know nothing about it. But he said, like, you'll do great just for your stand-up. You'll be fine. So I went through. I won my first fight. I won my second fight. And then I fought Roy Nelson in the semi-finals. Got caught in a crucifix and the referee stopped the fight. But then I fought in the final anyway, and I got my UFC contract. So that was kind of like the foot in the door of like, okay, now I'm in the UFC. I really better start learning this jiu-jitsu stuff. So that's where it went.
So at that time, if I remember correctly, from the clips that I did see at that time that kind of went viral, it was like the whole rivalry between Rampage and Rashad. Were you guys able to stay clear of that, or was that like, involved in the house as well?
Yeah, it was not really in the house. The fight, his fight team and our fight team, we kind of got on. We never had any problems with each other, even though we were going to fight each other. We had to coincide in the same house, right? So you got to get along a little bit. Yeah. But between them two, the rivalry was definitely real, and it was a pain in the ass because like there was this transition time where they would finish training and we were showing up to train. And we had to share the same gym. So there's an exchange period. And every time we'd be walking past each other in the corridors or in the mats, those two would go at it. And they would argue for like friggin' 30, 40 minutes. And of course, we're just standing around like, this is some bullshit. And then it's just taking up our training time. So they got a full 2 hours of training. We've got a 2 hour time period. But now we're only going to get an hour and 20 minutes because these two dipshits keep arguing over nothing. So it was getting frustrating. That's why you always see the arguments. There's like a crowd of us around trying to pull them apart. Like, come on, don't worry. Come on, don't worry. Let's go. Because we just want to get on with training. For us, there was a lot on the line and it was just a big distraction.
So we'll get to this in a minute, but just since we're already mentioning, could you see yourself doing a House of Glory if the season continues?
Yeah, I could see myself doing that. I think it would be good because I have experience. Like I've been in the Ultimate Fighter, right? So I have that experience, and I know. And also, I run my own gyms. I've been a coach for 15 years, so I know I can give back a lot to fighters. I know how to coach. Coaching and training is two separate talents. You don't have to be a great fighter to be a good coach, and you don't have to be a good coach to be a good fighter. They're two separate talents. I do believe they should be linked. Like I know there are coaches out there that have never fought or even never fought a good level, but they still can be coaches. Me personally, I can't be trained by a coach that has never fought or fought a good level because I feel that there's textbook learning, right? Which is like a theorist, and then there's a practitioner. A practitioner is someone that does it. So of course, I've done it, right? I'm doing it. So I know I know exactly how that fighter is going to feel when he's walking to the cage or the ring. I know exactly how that fighter is feeling when he wants to get tired and wants to quit. So I can relate to that stuff. And everything that I teach my fighters is tried and tested. to the highest level. So I'm not going to waste any time giving it like these techniques that are just egotistical techniques rather than stuff that actually works. So I think I can give a lot, but I also know that I can also bring a lot of attraction to the fights, and I can make the cameras be happy.
I was going to say that actually, I think when you first had your press conference against Gokhan, it was very refreshing because obviously a lot of the Glory guys are generally just have that, I wouldn't say peaceful, but there doesn't seem to be that much trash talk or like, you know, arguments filtering out. And then it was kind of like, you know, you were really just saying what you had on your mind. And when I've watched...
Well, the thing was with Gokhan and I, we've known each other for years, and we always got on pretty cool. And I always liked him. I mean, I was in Dubai when he fought in Dubai on a show, and we had mutual friends. He even come out to Thailand, and he walked into my gym in Thailand and watched me train, and we had photographs together. When he fought, I was like, "Oh man, you're going to win. I know exactly who's going to win this fight, right?" And we always got on okay. And then when I was meant to fight Plazabat, I was doing my training camp in Denver, Colorado. And he was calling some of my people that I had there from Holland to help me and Alistair. And they were saying to me like, "Oh, Gokhan called me today and he's talking a lot of shit about you. Like he's saying you're crap and you're this." And like, it was really weird. And I was like, that's fucking strange. Why do you do that? Well, I'm fighting Plazabat, you know, this is really strange. And it was just like a few weeks out. All of a sudden, my fight with Plazabat got cancelled. And then there was like a 10-day waiting period, which I thought I wasn't fighting. And then like 6 days or 5 days notice, I got the call to fight Gokhan Saki. So I'm like, Gokhan Saki, well, that's fucking strange. He's been calling my whole camp, asking about my training and talking shit about me. And then like, now I'm fighting him on 5 days notice. Like, oh, this is really weird, right? How did that work out? So I didn't hold any grudges over it. I just felt like, yeah, maybe he had an idea because, you know, the inside loop to get ready or whatever. So then when I went to I was still cool with him. I didn't have a problem with him at all. And then when I went to the weigh-ins and the press conference, I saw him earlier. I was just on my own. I sat down at the table. He was there. He had his sunglasses on inside, and you know he's acting too cool. Like, don't recognize me, but please recognize me, kind of stuff. And he's got all his entourage around him, and they're all looking at me and they're pointing and laughing at me. And I'm just sitting there on my own eating some food. And I'm thinking like, that's really weird. I thought we were cool. Like, of course, we're not best friends. We've never socialized. He knows a lot of people in Dubai that I know. I knew people in Thailand, a lot of people in Holland. I've actually was a huge fan of his. I think technical-wise, forget him as a person, technically, when Gokhan's on form, I believe he's probably the best kickboxer pound for pound in the world. So I was kind of like, so this is how we're going to play it. Okay. So when I went out onto the press conference, I was pissed off. And I was disappointed because I felt like as a veteran, we should have a mutual respect for each other. And I don't know where this taste thing was coming from. Of course, he didn't like what I had to say because, to be honest, it was probably he didn't like it because he knows it's the truth. Yeah, look, he beat me in the fight. He did a good job. I didn't adjust my game plan and I got caught with leg kicks. It's never happened in my career ever once in all the fights and all the organizations I've ever fought for. So I was training for Plazabat, who was a boxer. So he throws like one low kick a fight, right? My whole camp was for Plazabat. If I was fighting Saki, I would have been training for a kicker. So it's my fault. I lost. He did a great job. He beat me fair and square. I just pissed off at myself. That's the end of it. But I take full responsibility. But yeah, it was just unique. It was just really strange. I just didn't know maybe he has to be like that with his opponents. I don't have to be like that with my opponents. I can be really cool with them. It's not personal. And the Ultimate Fighter actually helped me with that. Because I would have breakfast with my opponent in the morning and then go to the gym and fight him in the afternoon. And then when I beat him, I'd go back and have dinner with a guy. So it really enabled me to disattach myself emotionally to fighting a person. I didn't need to have to hate him or to feel bad for him or have this, you know, I'm too cool for him mentality. I could just be professional and we can go out there, have a great fight and still be cool. But yeah, I guess Gokhan couldn't do that. So I was like, okay, well then fuck you then.
Well, in a lot of your fights, I did notice that you definitely are showing respect, like in between, like you'll do glove touches, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of bad blood in between fights. But I have noticed, and the reason I brought up the Ultimate Fighter was that it was funny to see that when someone does obviously poke the bear, so to speak, than you do obviously respond in kind. So that was why that was in my mind. But speaking of the whole kickboxing scene, like obviously you've probably seen in the UFC now more than once. Is it practical to have that kind of heated feelings towards each other, or do you just mature and say, okay, cool, look, we fought, end of story, let's crack on, and maybe we'll see each other down the line?
I'm not so sure about it's because they've got to fight each other numerous times. I think a lot of times the athletes that fight, English is not their first language. So I think they struggle to communicate in that respect. So like maybe one could be from like Czech Republic, one's from Netherlands, and one's from England or whatever. Or it could be, the first language barrier is different, so it's hard to communicate and express yourself. And I think if it was myself who owned not so much Glory, but or I owned a kickboxing, I would be using a talent agent to say to these guys, look, you're 6-0 in let's say Glory. You're 6-0 in Glory. We want to make you a superstar. We want to do that. You need to go and speak to a voice specialist who projects their voice. You need to go and speak to someone who can help you with English or with Dutch. Whoever the maiden market is that we're trying to attack. Let's say you put a show on in America and you've got 20 fighters, right? 10 fights. And you've only got 4 Americans on there or 4 people to speak English as a first language. Then you've got 16 people that need to go to acting school and need to be able to project their opinions and their voices and their projections to the media. Otherwise, those 4 people, those 4 Americans or those 4 English people speaking are going to have to carry the show, and that's impossible. So you need to have more people who can actually speak. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful by saying speak. I'm just saying about how they can actually project their voice in front of the camera, how they can, build a fight appropriately. It's kind of a bit like acting, right? You have to know how to make the fight appealing to the crowd. You can't just say, hey, you piece of shit, I'm going to kill you. And the guy goes, yeah, I kill you tomorrow. And then they push each other and walk off. No one cares about that. It's just like 2 Neanderthals just pushed each other and walked off. But if you've got 2 people to have that interesting conversation and say, hey, we did this and we did that and we're going to do it. Yeah, but you trained here and I did that. No disrespect, but you're not my level. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it just goes back and forth like a heated debate. Well, guess how many people watch heated debates? Millions. So if you watch people that can actually do that, I would be putting funding as a company. And if it was myself who had that issue, as a fighter, you're your own personal business. You should look at yourself as your own personal LLC. And fighting is one part of that, 60%. If you can't promote yourself to the outgoing network that you need to get sponsors, appearances, make your name stand out and be a personality, then unfortunately you're always going to be a fighter. You're never going to be a personality. You're never going to be a star. You're never going to have that next level of it. And that's nothing to do with how good you can fight. I mean, listen, look at the UFC, for example. There's amazing people out there that can fight. Look at Khabib in the UFC, right? He beat Conor. When he first came to America, he could hardly speak English. The UFC gave him a few fights, and then they said to him, you can't fight until you go and learn how to speak English. He had to go off and go to acting school, learn how to portray, learn how to speak, learn how to crack jokes, learn how to, now he's actually very dry-witted. Now he goes on talk shows in America. Now he's doing all these other appearances. He's on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. He's on the Joe Rogan podcast. Through millions and millions of viewers, and he's actually being funny. He's transitioned his own personality from where he's from to the American network. So he's made himself now a personality. But if he never did that, he would have never even got the opportunity to fight Conor. Because why would they take a superstar like Conor, who can speak, who can fire language, who can fast wear everybody, and decrown him to someone who they cannot promote? It's the business.
It's so fascinating to hear you speak about this, because as I was looking at your resume, I mean, you fought in ONE, you fought in KSW, you fought in the UFC, you're fighting in Glory. There may be you fought in, is it Bama?
Is that the one?
I fought Lumpini Stadium twice. I fought in the King's Birthday in Thailand. I fought for the biggest, largest organizations in the world, and I think I'm the only person to have ever achieved all of those. And that's not like pushing my boat or saying how amazing I am. It's just I wanted to take these experience fights in different parts of the world. I wanted to challenge myself. You know, going from kickboxing to Muay Thai is a completely different sport. The clinching, you got to learn clinching now. You got to learn elbows. You got to learn sweeps. You got to learn timing. It's very different. And then going from Muay Thai to MMA, yeah, it's another huge realm. Going from MMA to bare knuckle boxing, that's a huge different realm. And then going back to the highest level K1 in the world, that's another huge realm. So basically for myself, if I'm going to go out there and say, look, I'm a fighter and I'm a fighter to my core, that's one huge part of my foundation. I can't say I'm just a fighter if I only fight by these small rule set. I fought middleweight, light heavy, and I fought heavy, and I fight super heavy. I fought in 4 different weight classes. So for me, it's a personal challenge. I look at it as an art. It's martial arts. You know, to change your body from 185 pounds to a 265 pounds, and then back down to a 205, and then back to a 250. Like that's manipulating the putty. That's manipulating the sculpture, and I believe that's also an art. So an artist doesn't just use one color, right?
I've seen your Instagram, and I think it seems like you take care of your diet. I think is it red meat, that you're eating a lot of red meat and that sort of thing, or?
Yeah, I own my own farm, so I have 20 acres on a farm. We have our own fruits, vegetables. We have our own cattle, chickens, sheep, pigs, goats. And we're trying to be as self-sustained as we possibly can. And healthy, natural food from our farm goes to the kitchen. And I eat very healthy organic food. I also eat organs. I eat liver, kidney, spleen, pancreas, heart. So I eat as natural as I possibly can.
So James, you're very fascinating. Have you heard that quote? I'd much rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So that reminded me of that.
Very true.
So I'm just trying to think. So with your striking experience, I mean, you've gone to all these different organizations. Where I'm curious to know 2 things. How has, for example, as you pointed out, Muay Thai and kickboxing have different, avenues to them in terms of striking. How is MMA? How does MMA striking compare to kickboxing striking or Muay Thai striking, in your opinion?
It's very different because you have to have different level changes. There's certain combinations that will work in K1 that will never work in MMA. There's certain things that will work in Muay Thai that won't work in K1 or in MMA. So there's this like bridge you have to build. Like you can go to this gym and do kickboxing. You can go to this gym and do jiu-jitsu. You can go over there and do strength conditioning. That doesn't mean you can be an MMA fighter. There's a bridge that you have to build, and experience that you have to know that these certain level changes, distances, it's just different. So there's certain combinations that will not work. And that's a trial and error you could have, or unless you've got a coach, like someone like myself or someone else like Alistair, people that have done a very high level of K1 and a very high level of MMA, they will know those bridges because they've had to walk them, they've had to build them, they've had to form them. So to teach that is easily done, and the explanation can just be, look, don't do this because of this, and if you do this, be careful of that, and if you just do that, you're going to get taken down. And you know, there's this battle going on all the way through the conversations, but it's very different. I mean, there's great level of with little 4-ounce fingerless gloves, striking is very different. The guard is different. Your attack is different. Hand position is different. So there's lots of things that are different, and you don't have to actually hit as hard as you do with big 16 or 8-ounce gloves. And the distance relationships are way different as well. Combination numbers are different. If you're going to go out there and throw, a 4 to 6 punch kick knee combination in MMA, expect to be put on your back after 2 of those.
I actually did notice when I was watching some of your MMA fights, like it seems like you're bouncing in and out a lot. I think your fight against Roger Gracie, you're like moving his lead hand, so you're kind of hand trapping, and you moving in and out. And then in your kickboxing fights, and I find this very fascinating, you do a lot of switch stances. So you seem to switch the position of your feet, and sometimes it looks like you're coming in with like a peekaboo style and then a high kick. Very pleasure to watch. I mean, that's something I noticed at least.
It's different because, of course, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu now, but I mean, at the time, I definitely wasn't when I was transitioning. So the style that I was picking up is that I was always a very light heavyweight. I walked around with like 220 pounds when I was in the heavyweight division, which means I was pretty much a light heavyweight in that division. So it enabled me to be faster. And if I kept switching my feet, it stopped them from getting lead leg takedowns. It didn't allow them to adjust to the distance, okay? And also, they were fearful of my knees. I knocked a lot of people out with knees. So if I kept switching, it never made wrestlers or grapplers comfortable in shooting for a single leg or a double or going for a high crotch because they were worried about getting kneed in the face.
And to touch, I mean, Alistair is another key example of the knees, right? How did you guys? I mean, I know that you mentioned that you met him at Carbine Gym, but how long have you guys known each other? Were you in contact during the UFC and all the rest of it?
We've known each other, I think it was 22 years. We worked it out the other last week or something. We were talking about it, just like I think it's like 22 years we've known each other. We were at the same gym at Lucian's for about 3 years. Then Alistair went off and left Lucian, did his thing. I went off in 2006 to America. I still use Dutch coaches. I still used to fly back or fly them to me. Alistair did not. He went off and brought his whole team with him all over the world where he was training. I think he went to 2010. He was with Core Hemmers and Nicky Hemmers and them guys. And then he used Roberto Flamingo and had brought them to Miami. And then when we was in America, we always kept contact. He come out to Thailand a couple of times to visit me, help me get ready for a couple of fights. I'd go and help him. Our whole relationship started like this, and it kind of just all the way through. And then the last few years now, we've really just been gelling together. And we've become, way more closer. We're kind of going through the similar things, age and stage in our careers, going through similar mentalities. And if I know we both got more spiritual. And if you think about like someone's life is intertwined for over 20 years with good and negative, in 20 years, you can't like everything somebody does, and you're not going to dislike everything somebody does. So there's lots of things along the path, but on a whole, we both know we have a good heart for each other. We both know we're loyal to each other. And, a good friend shows up in the shadows, right? They don't show up when the sun's out. They show up when the shit hits the fan.
For sure. And how I did notice again when I was just browsing your page, how is your has spirituality been something that's always been with you since you were like a 16-year-old kid, or has it developed with time? And
no, I wasn't brought up religious at all. My parents are not religious. My father had a distaste for religion because he was brought up in Ireland and went to a Catholic school by monks. And you can imagine back in the 60s, it was very strict, very hard. And they used to beat the kids and mistreat them a lot. So he had a very distaste for it. I always had a relationship with God, I think, when things went wrong in my life. I remember sitting in the many jail cells like, God, if just do me this one favor, get me out of this and I'll change, I promise. And then I never kept my word. But when I met my wife in 2009, 2010, my wife is super beautiful lady, very religious, Christian. And just slowly but surely, I don't know. I think God works in mysterious ways. He knows how to go to people to get the message to you if he can't directly get to you. So he found an angel and sent her into my life. And and that's how it got real. That's how it all started. And then now, I'm a Christian. My daughter also is Christian. And we just got baptized together, actually, a couple of months ago. So that was really cool experience to get baptized the same day as my daughter. And I've been strict to my faith now for a long time.
The power of belief is so important. Okay, so this main event, how did it come about? How are you feeling about it? And there's been so many nice YouTube clips of you like interacting with fans, and one great thing about you is you have a sense of humor. You can interact with people who may be feeling a certain way, but you're like, hey, it's all good. Just talk me through that.
Listen, this is a business, right? And you'd be very egotistical and very narrow-minded if you was to believe that every fan is your best friend, right? I've never had, in the whole of my career, which is 26 years now, 27 years, right, since I turned professional, I've traveled the world 10 times over, 20 times over. I don't know. I've never had one bad experience with one fan like this. You know, never one. They've always said, "Hey, James, how you doing?" or whatever. You know, I support him, but, you know, you're really nice or whatever. When social media existed or just came into the party, I'm not even on social media, right? I don't really care about it. It's not. I'm 40 odd years of age. I have a family and businesses and a life, so I don't really pay attention to that stuff. But I care about relationships with people. Whether somebody wants to watch me win or get knocked out, I really don't care. It's really about supporting the sport and supporting the fighters and so making an atmosphere. And I understand there's always going to be more of a favorite than there is this, or it's even. It can't always be your way. I mean, my whole career, I don't believe it's ever been my way. So I just live with that. I don't know why. I think because I think some people don't always like my, I'm going to call it honesty, but it's honesty to my thought process, right? It's like I say what I think. It doesn't always mean it's the truth. It's my truth. It's what I believe to be the truth. And some people may not like that. I don't know. Some people just want to take offense to anything you say nowadays. But when they see me, like we did this clip for Gloria, they were getting these guys come up at the last Gloria event, and they said, "Who do you think's going to win?" And they were picking these guys on purpose because 99% would be Badr fans, right? So they're like, "Oh, Badr's going to win." I'd sneak up behind them and say, "Hey, you think he's going to beat me?" And then I'd win. "Oh, James, how are you?" And then I'd give big hugs, and we were cool. And that's just great. I've had them all message me after that and say, "Oh, thank you so much. I think I didn't really like you before, but now I meet you. You're a nice guy. You're cool, whatever." And I say, "Hey, don't worry. I still like Badr." I say, it's not like a marriage. You don't have to just say, like, I just like this one person. You can like lots of fighters. You don't have to say he's your favorite, but you can like everybody. And that's where I think the sport is so special, because you can, you don't have to hate everyone. You just like this one person. You don't have to take such offense when your favorite fighter is fighting somebody. Like, some people take such offense to this. How dare you fight him? How dare you think you can win? I hope your plane goes down. Like, I've had all these kind of messages. I just think it's hilarious. But the fact is, me and the other guy don't feel this way about each other. He's a professional. I'm a professional. For me, I got into this sport to personally test myself and to fight some demons away out of my life. So for me, it's like, I want to fight the very best guys in the world to personally test myself, and also to put my name up there and represent the things that I believe in. You're only going to be able to do that if you do that against the very best. So, you know what? Let's do it. And if you get offended by that, that's more on you. For me, I wish everybody the best. I want to have a great fight. Whether you love Badr, whether you like me, whether you like us both, whether you hate us both, it really doesn't matter. You buy tickets, you support the show. We can't live without you. You guys can't live without us. Hey, we should just meet in the middle and gel. We shouldn't be clashing. I just don't believe in this stuff. I just think that I'm too old. I'm too mature. I've been around too long, and I don't waste my energy with it. So let's just have a good time. Let's just train. Let's build the experience, and let's fight our hearts out. Hope the fans enjoy the fight. You're going to get two veterans from different realms. It's an honor for me to fight this guy. It's absolutely like, wow, unbelievable for me. I trained my hardest and my ass off. I'm going to give him my bestest performance out there I possibly can. Win, lose, or draw, that I did what I could do. And for him, win, lose, or draw, he's going to do his best to take me out. And that's what makes this sport so beautiful.
Well, so regardless of the outcome on Saturday for either of you guys, do you think you'll keep a heavy interest in the rest of the heavyweight, the whole title Grand Prix kind of scenario? And how does that? Have you looked at that or thought about it?
I'm always going to watch the sport. I'm always going to love the sport. I have a big interest in the sport. I'm just, because when I ever decide to hang up the gloves and I ever decide to stop, whenever that day comes, I'm still going to be interested in watching the sport. I'm going to continue to watch whether I'm in the tournament or I'm not in the tournament. I'm going to watch it because I have a passion for it.
So we've had some interesting new heavyweights. Baron Rajabzadeh has been really interesting. I mean, he's like on fire. He just come through. Are there any heavyweights that you've seen like more up and coming, or just maybe a bit younger and stuff, and you say, "Oh, this has got a nice style," or something like that?
Well, Plazabat was on a great roll right until he had his last fight. He had a broken arm, and then he had his problem against his own guy from his own gym who beat him. But that was a great fight. It was a real war. It was a great testament to both of them. Now he's going on to fight Rico. In the last tournament, I was surprised how small some of the guys was. And look, I think at the moment, Gloria are doing a great job. They're trying to build a heavyweight division because you've got some more mature guys. Like I'm probably the oldest in the show. Then you got Badr. Then you've got Rico. We're all coming. Now we never know when the end's going to be, but we're all at the end of the race, right? We're all past the 3/4 mark. We can see the finish line, if that makes sense. So they need to build these younger guys, build them up, give them the experience for them to grow. And I just think they've got a whole network right now of young guys that are super talented and they can grow into superstars. And I think that they need to do that, nurture them, grow them, give them the experience, keep them fighting regularly, and create these and see who grows through and who dramatically increases the most. And then you're gonna find out in the next 5 to 10 years, you're gonna have some absolute superstars out there.
I think it'd be really fun to hear you whenever you decide to do something else. It'd be really nice to have you as a commentator, as a fight breakdown analyst, especially with the
wealth of experience that you have. I'm not saying it's anytime soon, but whenever you decide to, and especially like with do you ever think that there might be strikers, for example, in MMA who, like, they predominantly just strike? So have you ever thought that it might be an idea for them to come into glory, like someone who's just consistently getting taken down and probably wakes up and thinks, I've had enough of ending up on my back?
I think there's a lot of amazing striker in MMA that have to make some transitioning. If you were to say, like, okay, this guy's a great striker for MMA, let's put him in the K1 right now, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to really have a hard time. But that doesn't mean they can't develop. And if they train and give like K1 a good year of K1 training, submerge themselves with K1 style of training, which is faster, more upbeat pace, different techniques, different energy system. I'm sure there's going to be loads that can grow. And actually, there's probably some in the MMA that aren't the best strikers in MMA, but they would actually probably nurture it to be better K1 fighters than MMA fighters. So you never really know. You have to be personally around them. But the fact is, at the moment, the balance is like this. The UFC and the MMA is up here, and kind of Glory is like trying to climb the ladder. It's doing great in Europe. It has to do a lot of work to penetrate the American scene. They've had a couple of shows in America, which I only talk about personal opinion. I don't think it was the best shows, but they could create some amazing superstar shows in America. So it just has to do a little bit of different networking. The market research in America is completely different to Europe, and I think you have to really work on how you're going to do that, and without losing money. It's a big gamble to take as a company and invest a lot of millions to make that American jump. But it can be done. It can be done. It's been done before, right? America used to be the hub of kickboxing. So UFC come through and kind of snatch that away. But it can easily come back, and Gloria has all the ingredients to do it. It's just whether they want to do it or whether they're willing to do it.
James, I have just realised how long we've been going for. Let me just check. Still have some more time, or should I just... Yeah, no, I know the time, but do you think it's... Okay, I wanted to ask you 2 more questions. If we ever get another chance, I'll ask you.
One now quickly, and I've got to run.
Okay, all right. If you could fight anyone, any famous fighter in history that was a heavyweight, it doesn't matter what sport, like, but you're a striker, any striker that you would have liked to have had a go at, just for the experience.
I'd like to have felt George Foreman, because I believe that George Foreman was probably, one of the most powerful punchers back then, when he was in his prime, when he knocked out Frazier, when he attacked, of course, went after Muhammad Ali, Doparo. You saw those punches, you saw the body reactions. It would just be interesting to be like, I'd love to feel what that felt like in his prime. So, I think George Foreman would be an awesome... I'm not saying I would win, because the guy was absolutely fantastic in his prime. But I'd like to have felt that. I'd like to have felt how hard he hits. I don't know whether I'll take one of them or 10 of them, but I'd like to feel it.
James, it's been an absolute honor. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you both come out of it healthy and happy, and yeah, we continue seeing you around and continue speaking with you. Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Of course.
ChampsTalk, als je knokken niet meer krijgt uit je kop. ChampsTalk, ouwe hoeren zoeken rem op de klok. ChampsTalk, voor mijn strijders en mijn vechters pas zinnen. Ga lekker zitten en laten we beginnen met de ChampsTalk.